July 5th, 1943, Cherkasskoye, Russia. 11th Panzer Division has been given the task of breaking through the Russian lines so that a crossing can be secured of the Psel River. Blocking them are Russian units from the 19th Guards Rifle Regiment and the 611th Antitank Regiment. Cherkasskoye is the linchpin for the defense and will need to be taken. Soviets are dug in to the west in the village of Cherkasskoye. Village contains our objectives and can be roughly divided into three parts. North village contains 3 objectives, south contains 1, and west contains the last objective. Important note here is the markers on the western map edge designating where reinforcements would be arriving from. Approaches to the village are covered by mines, barbed wire, concrete bunker emplacements, and trenches. These guns are both front in the concrete bunkers and back in trenches and dugouts, with overlapping lines of fire covering most of the approaches. However, we start near 2 hills, partially screening us from some of the AT guns, and as we start advancing, copses of trees and cratered terrain can be used to cover our infantry. While wheat fields would give us partial concealment from at least half Soviet AT guns as we approach. Soviet force consists of approximately company strength of infantry, reinforced by anti-tank element and a mixed platoon of tank and tank destroyers. There are 2 things to note. First, it is very light on leaders. Second, and more importantly, we know that Soviets are getting reinforcements halfway through the battle, so not all of the elements will be present from the beginning. Germans have 2 infantry companies led by 2 captains and roughly an armor company with smoke, off-map artillery and air support. And while this would usually be enough, we would need to get past these guns in order to cause the most damage. We have superior numbers, and the onus is on us to move up and take the village of Cherkasskoye. Losses are expected, but we should be able to soak them up if we do things right. To that effect, our plan is as follows. We shall attempt to use Blitzkrieg tactics. Use infantry to advance first, tempting these guns opportunity fire. Then push North Tank Group as fast as we can to get in the rear arc of Northern Bunker this emplacement, effectively screening that group from most other AT elements. At the same time, pushing Southern Panzer Group to the wheat field and then exploiting the gap in the mines and barbed wire into an orchard past the concrete bunker with a ZIS gun, taking that gun and engaging the gun in the rear south dugout. Once both of these AT positions are eliminated, Southern Group would work in conjunction with North Group to eliminate the rest of the Soviet AT capability, while staying out of their line of fire and maintaining line of sight towards the expected reinforcements. In the meantime, infantry would slowly move into the front wheat fields and start grinding down Soviet front line. Everything working as intended, by the time infantry is done with the front line, the rear of Soviet defenses should be in tatters. Hauptmann Trost is taking control of the southern advance group, while Hauptmann Lemon will lead the northern assault force. We start by moving up per our plan and lose 1 fire team in the northern advance and 2 fire teams down south. However, the important part so far is that none of our tanks have been disabled or taken out. This does not last long, and in the Soviets' first turn they take out 1 Panzer III and 1 Panzer IV in the south, and another Panzer IV and 2 infantry fire teams in the north while pinning a section. In our defensive fire turn, we attempt to take out the ZIS-2 gun in the northern emplacements with no luck. Platoon commanded by Oberlieutenant Lenson, takes out an HMG in the central bunker and pins Soviet officer there. Southern Group unleashes a barrage of fire on the Soviets' front line with 0 results. So far, our losses and progress are acceptable, but our man has to start being more accurate if we're to achieve our objectives. Thankfully, we go first in turn 2, and able to add to the barrage of the previous turn. While our fire on the central bunker is ineffectual, our AA half-track rakes this 2-gun in the southern bunker with armor-piercing ammo from its 2cm flak 38, annihilating the Soviet AT. We move up a section to bring a platoon led by Oberlieutenant Grossberg back to full strength. And Northern Group occupies the northernmost edge of the wheat field to establish fire superiority on the northern bunker and trench. Down south, Panzer 3J starts moving towards the orchard in the rear of southern Soviet bunker and immediately takes fire. First from a frontline AT rifle. Then from the northernmost this 2-gun, next from the southwestern this 2-gun, and finally from an AT rifle in the western trench, showcasing the superiority of German engineering with all 4 rounds bouncing off its armor. Soviet opportunity fire exhausted allows the rest of the Southern Panzer Group to do the Blitzkrieg unopposed. This is critical as we're establishing fire superiority versus the lone ZIS 2-gun in the southwest and getting in the rear of Soviet positions. Our infantry moves up to engage the southern front line, and Hauptmann Trost platoon gets raked with a light machine gun, pinning a section and reducing it to a fire team. Up north, Marder 3 storms the Soviet trench, but the elite defenders are too well dug in and it has no effect. Another Marder attempts to move up in support but gets taken out by ZIS 5 from the village center. In the Soviets' defensive fire phase, 5cm mortar lands a direct hit on our half-track, eliminated the APC and an entire section mounted therein, leaving only a smoking wreck behind. In the advance and assault phase, we advance our Southern Panzer Group and orient it with the heaviest armor to the enemy. During the Soviet turn, they managed to eliminate another Panzer III in the south, but we return the favor in our defensive fire phase as our lead tank leaves a smoking wreck from the ZIS 2-gun in the southwestern dugout, eliminating the last AT in the south. while the rest of our fire in the south is less effectual, only pinning a section southwest and reducing a light machine gun section to a fire team at the frontline sector. Northern push, finally, has some success. It takes out northernmost this 2-gun, pins 2 sections and reduces the third one to a fire team. Finally, Oberlieutenant Lechensen's platoon takes out last AT gun in the frontline sector, with only 2 guns left in the Cherkasskoye village. Oberlieutenant Grossberg's platoon assists them and clears the central bunker completely. Lieutenant Rechfeld's men managed to reduce an AT section to a fire team in their southern sector. And Hauptmann Trost's platoon eliminates a heavy machine gun in the southern bunker, leaving a lone officer inside. Unfortunately, I have forgotten to record the beginning of turn 3, so we start at the advance and assault phase here. With Soviet southern front line completely gone and our troops having advanced across the board. Our opponent was not sleeping either, and we see a pinned Panzer Grenadier section under the command of Oberlieutenant Grossberg, and a pinned down fire team from Oberlieutenant Lensen's move up to reinforce northern push to break the deadlock there. In the south, we advance our infantry through the same gap panzers rolled through earlier, avoiding barbed wire to the front. Our southern tank group is now in perfect position to oversee the west and center of the village, being outside arc of fire of the remaining ZIS guns. And not a moment too soon, as Soviet reinforcements arrive during the opponent's turn. Our positioning allows us to get opportunity fire on the reinforcements taking out Su-76M tank destroyer, with the remaining mixed tank platoon moving towards our martyr in the northern field. Taking advantage of our perfect position, our panzers land a perfect hit on ZIS 5-gun in the central village, taking it out. While our infantry peppers the southern bunker, clearing it for our advance. Oberlieutenant Grossberg's platoon pins the crew of the only remaining ZIS gun in the northern village sector. And while we pour everything we got onto the northern front line, elite Soviet forces shrug it off without a scratch. Turn 4 starts with our martyr disabling Soviet Su-76 tank destroyer. and Hauptmann Lemon's platoon finally reducing the enemy numbers in the northern bunker to a fire team. While Oberlieutenant Grossberg's Panzer Grenadiers show their elite status yet again by eliminating a whole light machine gun section in the northern village. We lead elements of infantry in the south advance cautiously forward to assault the southern village sector. However, Lieutenant Rechfeld is too eager to catch up to the lead element, and pushes his platoon forward with recklessness, having 2 sections pinned in the open, and last one fully eliminated in the process. In the north, our second Martyr moves forward, shrugging off 2 shots from the Soviet tanks and attempts to overrun northern trench. Again, Soviets' elite rifles shrug the assault off without any loss of men. We lose another fire team as we push men to the wheat field in the southern village sector. Our panzers move up to get eyes on the T-34 and the disabled Su-76. The lead one takes fire from an AT rifle, shrugging the shots off. Thankfully, Soviet defensive fire didn't cause any further casualties, and we advance across the board. During the Soviets' turn, we have taken a lot of fire, but surprisingly the only casualties are Martyr, taken out by T-34 from a point-blank shot, and a fire team under the command of Lieutenant Lensons up north. We start our defensive fire phase by eliminating a fire team in a wheat field. Hauptmann Lemon's platoon finished what they have started at the beginning of this turn and finally clear northern bunker completely. While Lieutenant Udert reduces the trench nearby to a single section. We spent considerable resources on attempting to eliminate Leist AT gun and finally do so, slightly relieving pressure on the Oberlieutenant Grossberg's men. Turn 5 starts with bad news. Last Remained in Martyr was eliminated by a section from the trench it tried to overrun last turn. This, however, has reduced the Soviets to a fire team and left them outside the trench. Oberlieutenant Kleinert's platoon uses this opportunity to finally open up the northern advance and takes them out. Oberlieutenant Lenson's men pay back in kind for the loss of their comrades and take out a fire team responsible, working with Oberlieutenant Grossberg's Panzer Grenadiers, who eliminate the remaining section occupying the same house. The rest of the infantry maneuvers to either assault the southern or northern village sectors. Soviet defensive fire reduces our Grossberg's Panzer Grenadiers by another fire team, and an assaulting element in the south by a section and a half. However, we are taking southern sector, and Hauptmann Trost's men storm a pinned-down fire team in a house adjacent to our objective there, eliminating them without any losses to us. During the Soviet turn, our opponent reduced our assault Panzer Grenadiers to a fire team and pinned them, sealing their fate in the opponent's assault phase. Oberlieutenant Lenson's men eliminate Soviet officer in the northern sector. Together with the Grossberg's men, they are the best performing infantry this battle, both instrumental in breaching the northern defensive line. Hauptmann Trost takes out another fire team in the southern sector, while our tanks are starting to work on the infantry. We are not going to risk exposing ourselves just yet to the Soviet T-34s hiding behind the houses in the western sector, and disabled Soviet tank destroyer is no threat as it doesn't have a turret and is hopelessly stuck pointing north, away from our forces. During their assault phase, our opponent made two significant moves down south. One was the assault that wiped out our pinned Panzer Grenadiers, the other, a move of his elite rifles to occupy objective in the southern sector. Putting that aside for now, Oberlieutenant Grossberg's Panzer Grenadiers really trying to take the glory by eliminating another fire team that decided to pop its heads up in the northern sector, while our tanks reduce an elite decorated guards that cost us so many men to a fire team size. Hauptmann Trost and his men are working slow and steady, reducing numbers in the southern sector's objective. Oberlieutenant Lenson loses another fire team to a T-34 fire as they cross open ground to take shelter in the northern sector of Cherkasskoye village. However, all our men make it to relative safety of the village and reorg there. With Oberlieutenant Lanson getting a section of combat engineers, while Hauptmann Trost orders an assault on the elite and decorated Soviet infantry holding the southern sector objective, losing a fire team in the process but eliminating the defenders and taking that objective. At the same time, Lieutenant Rehfeld, having ordered his platoon to assault into a wheat field, and while he does lose a full section, he eliminates the last resistance in the southern sector. In the opponent's turn, they reduce Oberlieutenant Grossberg Panzer Grenadiers to a single section, and we see them attempting to reinforce the northern sector. But the men sent there get eliminated the moment they try to occupy the objective adjacent to Hauptmann Lehmann's men. Hauptmann Trost's platoon also received a lot of fire, pinning everyone bar Trost himself. One of our light machine gun sections gets a commendation of exceptional marksmanship and eliminates a fire team while pinning the rest of the men. Oberlieutenant Lenson's men, now bolstered by combat engineers, eliminate the last two fire teams in the northern sector. While the platoon, under command of Oberlieutenant Kleinert, takes out a fire team, leaving only the tanks and western sector occupied. And our panzers reduce those defenders even further. Turn 7 opens up with a bang, as we reduce and pin the last defenders of the western sector. We also take a moment to eliminate previously disabled tank destroyer. We move up men from the north, making a mistake by moving in the open between houses, losing the fire team in the process. And the south, closing in to within firing positions of the western sector and getting ready to assault. In the opponent's turn, Hauptmann Trost lost a fire team. But our panzers eliminate Soviet one in return. And Hauptmann Trost's men also have their revenge by taking out another Soviet fire team. We start turn 8 by pinning last remaining men by our AA guns, and finish it off with our panzers. Lieutenant Rehfeld rushes forward into the western sector to take the last remaining objective in the village. Hauptmann Lemon's men try to take the best cover possible as they dash through the open field of fire in front of T-34 and occupy the building ready for an assault on a Soviet tank. And while the game goes on for another turn, there can be only one outcome. We not only achieve our objectives, but also fully eliminate the defending force. So what went well, and what could we have done better this game? Our plan was solid and worked brilliantly, especially in the south, where the positioning of our panzer group was exceptional. Just in time for the Soviet reinforcements to show up as well. We accounted for attrition well and reinforced the stalled northern offensive promptly with Oberlieutenant Grossberg's and Lansing's men, who performed exceptionally well and were instrumental in the northern breakthrough. However, there is still room for improvement. On a number of occasions, our Pixel Truppen moved out in the open without assault move command, pinning us and costing us men. Combined with subpar utilization of smoke, even if it was better than round 1, see my previous video for details. Improvement in this area would have allowed us to preserve our forces better. Furthermore, this round of tournament is when I have truly discovered that assaulting tanks with infantry is an extremely potent tactic. Having looked up details in the rulebook, tanks can only use their secondary weapon for the purposes of assault strength calculations, so do not leave your tanks adjacent to enemy infantry, even if it is just one section of them. Which brings me to what could our opponent have done differently. Throughout the game, our opponent made a number of remarks as to how luck simply wasn't on their side. I would argue that having 5 or 6 sections with medals does not support that conclusion, as that is the amount of double ones the opponent had to roll. And that's the best roll possible in this gaming system, by the way. For the most part, Soviets were playing very passive and remained in their positions. There was no attempt made to reinforce front line or the flanks at any stage. This allowed me to section out Soviet forces through maneuver and eliminate the most dangerous elements piecemeal, while achieving fire superiority in my chosen sectors. There were also a number of smaller-scale tactical errors made by my opponent, whereby they chose to assault from a dug-in position into the open, leaving their men exposed to follow-up fire and elimination. While assaulting our martyr up north might have been justified, I would argue that assaulting our Panzer Grenadiers down south with elite medalled sections and leaving the bonuses of an occupied house in order to do so was a folly, due to the presence of overwhelming assault force. On a positive note, I definitely commend moving the reinforcements tank platoon up north to achieve fire superiority versus our sole martyr there, and eliminating it as a result. And that was an absolute blast of a game. Thanks to my opponent and best wishes to them in the rest of the tournament. Let me know what you thought of this game in the comments below. And if you want to know how I would approach the defense as Soviets, check out this video next.